it's totally impossible to put in a final report everything that has been said. And this is because the debate has been diverse, rich, fruitful, and so on, but it's a difficulty for the rapporteur. So, there are a few points I think should be stressed and should come out from this discussion. These few points could be the guidelines for the final report that I described to you yesterday, a 10-minute final report. So I cannot possibly encompass all the ideas that came here and were brought by you. Now, the main idea, I think, or at least should be a very good starting point as far as I'm concerned. If I understood well, when Chris asked you, did you say that you strongly recommend to the ministers to adopt the communication? Yes or no? Thank you very much. The final report is on its way. Because basically this communication contains a lot of ideas, some general ideas, some very concrete ideas and proposals. So basically if you endorse this communication, in the sense that you're proposing or suggesting or recommending to the ministers to adopt this communication, the outline of my final report is actually done. Through this discussion, you have validated most of the ideas that are here, and you expressed some doubts, and you expressed some fears, sometimes even. Two of them. The first of all, the fear expressed by some of you that this cultural agenda could become a sort of bureaucratic umbrella to embrace all the diversity of the European cultures or expressions or whatever. And so the first idea that I think should be take its place or take shape in this final report would be to strongly suggest and recommend to the European Commission to do a strong effort in communication in order to clarify this issue. This is not supposed or expected to create an umbrella to embrace all the diversity of cultural expressions. This is totally different. I mean, when you read the communication, you can at least understand that the intention is not the intention of unifying or harmonizing in the sense of a common cultural discourse, but it's totally different. The idea is to create some mechanisms, some coordinated mechanisms in order to enhance diversity. So this is a first idea which I think is important. The second one, of course, or the second doubt or fear you expressed, is that in the course of the implementation of the cultural agenda at any stage, who will be given voice? I mean, who will be the partners among the community, the vast community of cultural actors? Who will be the representatives and the partners and the voices that will be discussing with the Commission as such? So a strong point to be made, and I will make it in the final report, is that it's extremely important that a structured dialogue between the cultural actors and the powers, and the political powers, should be based on a clear, transparent coordination method, which is proposed, but has to be implemented accordingly. So this is the second point. I think it's important. A third point that I would like to stress in my final report, after stressing that you suggested the adoption of this communication and all its contents, is the fact that multilingualism cannot be understood only in the sense of a plurality of languages spoken by a single individual, and respect, protection and development of the different languages that come to us in Europe, in the European space, so coming from the origin countries of people who come to work and live with us, have to be fully respected and developed, in the sense that something has to be done in order to strengthen the radical sense of this original language. This is the roots, and the roots have to be preserved, either being European or extra-European. Now, this point brings me to an interesting question that was being raised, and I would like to very lightly to put it in the final report, if you agree with me, if you authorize me to put it. Is it a big country issue, actually? I mean, this question of multilingualism, is it a big country issue? Is it something which has to do with the biggest language fields in Europe, such as French or English or whatever? The question was being raised, and it's an interesting one, because I think that maybe this has to be approached very softly, in the sense that you cannot think that the situation of multilingualism in one part of Europe is the same as in any other part of Europe. I mean, Eastern countries, Eastern Europe countries, for instance, have a tradition of speaking, of multilingualism, of speaking 5, 6, 4, up, starting 4, up to 6, 7, 8 languages, even because of their historical past. I think that, let me just give you an example. About 10 years ago or 12 years ago, something like that, I was in an international mission, and I was in an Eastern European country, and I went into the lift, and I started talking with my colleague in Portuguese, naturally, and then I had a response from two gentlemen that were in the same lift. They were nationals of that country, which was, at that time, which was Poland. They were talking Portuguese with us because, of course, they had been working outside in Angola and Mozambique and so on, so on. So it comes from very old times, but this means that this capacity has been enlarged in some countries due to their historical recent past, for instance. Of course, I will not get into this kind of detail. I'm just explaining why I think it is important to give a sign that maybe this question of multilingualism has to be assessed carefully in order to avoid generalizations that could be out of proportion with the case in applying to certain member states. Now, an important point I think that has been emphasized here, and I think I'd like to put it in the final report. It's the word curiosity. I think it should get its way and its place in the final report, because it doesn't normally figure in the vocabulary both of the European Commission, the member states, the politicians, and even the cultural operators, at least in Portugal. I'm sorry to say so, but in Portugal this is a very, very curious word, actually. Now, curiosity, to my understanding, curiosity was used in so many different ways during these debates. And why? Because it connects much more with an individual, emotional attitude of the individual than to widespread categories of thought. Curiosity is something you cannot possibly describe, even if we know, and we have to avoid the fact that curiosity killed the cat. But the fact is that curiosity is a basic instinct to know more, to get into the other, to get into the territory of the other. And I think I would like to stress these, because I think that all these papers, which, by the way, I fully agree with one of our colleagues that stressed the fact that maybe some of the papers should be translated. I heard it before many times. It's difficult when we were working on that. I cannot assure that my final report will be totally out this kind of language and speech, I'm afraid. But I think that inserting a word such as curiosity in this kind of debate is trying to ring a bell to the ministers, so ministers and the President of the Commission who will be attending this evening the presentation of the final report. There is something more than just words in all this kind of intercultural dialogue. Something that has to deal with personal feelings and not only with personal thoughts. There is something of affection in these, and I think intercultural dialogue lacks enormously, or needs enormously, this kind of ability.